Welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave, where we will review and spoil the hugely popular Netflix show Bridgerton. So, my name is Glen, Dagos Rivers from the podcast Vice and Fireforms. I am very happy to be joined by.
Hi, it's Bina 007, and I'm really happy to be with the OG, the OGest of the OG curators, Glen. It's a great moment.
Hi, it's Mary on Nymeria on the Discord and the internet. Happy to be here as well. It's been a while.
Now, the show has been compared to quite a few, I guess. Downton Abbey comes up quite a lot, quite a lot of upstairs, downstairs type dramas, but the main one that comes up is Gossip Girl. Now, were we fans of Gossip Girl?
Obsessively at the time, to my great shame.
I actually never finished it, and I don't really know why. Maybe because I knew from the get-go who Gossip Girl was, so I was into it, but I didn't finish because there was nothing to discover at the end of the series. But I liked it definitely. So yes, this is very much like that, but in a weird and different way.
Similar to you, Mary, I did watch the first two seasons, obsessively watched it, knew exactly when it would come on and was watching it like maybe the next day. But then it just stopped after season two. I think season two had a really bad ending and just never came back for the third season. And then, after watching this, thinking back, oh, Gossip Girl, I wonder if they ever revealed who it was. So did some searching and seen who it was and noticed that it came up in a lot of articles of like worst endings to TV shows.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yes, I think I knew it was really before the first episode. Even I just read it, but I've almost watched the entire show. Actually, I must be missing like 15 episodes, but I started watching something else, and then yeah, classic. But anyway, I was actually yes, Bina.
Do you think this is what it's going to be like for people watching Game of Thrones now? Like people who were younger and didn't watch it at the time that it was showing? Like, yeah, but I already know about the Red Wedding. I didn't know who sits on the throne at the end. So I kind of watched a few seasons and blah, you know.
I still don't know who sits on the throne.
Well, in the articles that I've read, like quite a few of them, Gossip Girl came up, but also Game of Thrones came up.
Really?
No, it's nothing like that. To me, this is just Jane Austen crossed with Gossip Girl. That's exactly how I would describe it to someone. It's how it was described to me, and it's why I knew I was going to love it.
Yeah, same. It doesn't make me think so much of Downton Abbey. I mean, it's not even the right period, right? It's like a century before. But like, except for the kind of historical drama, it's not really the same. And
completely agree.
Yeah, it's just very silly, but very compelling.
Very conservatively told. Like, even if they have characters who are progressive, like the daughter who marries the chauffeur, it's very, in its style, its language, the way it's filmed, the costumes, it's very conservative.
Yes,
very
exactly.
It's also lovely. I mean, I love Downton Abbey, but this to me reminded me more of, we were discussing it on the chat, like Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, or if anyone's watching Dickinson on Apple TV Plus, these shows that attempt to combine historical drama with really modern music and really modern or very kind of heightened costumes, like really like candy colored costumes and just language that's a bit more playful. And of course, the really progressive use of people of color and gay issues and Bridgerton. So to me, it's like the opposite of Downton, which is so conservative and classic, and this is trying to be so much more fun and modern. And yeah, I really love it for that.
Plus, a big drawing power for me was that Shonda Rhimes was involved with it. So how to Get Away with Murder? That's that's another one I've not actually finished watching, but at the time it was one of my favorite shows. I think I got up to about season 4 of that and then stopped watching, but it's something I really need to go back to.
Did she do Scandal with Kerry Washington?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one Scandal, and
Grey's Anatomy?
that's it.
I was hugely into Scandal, and that was very trashy and over the top. But again, it was really interesting because it had like interracial love affairs and stuff, which I gather is quite controversial in America, maybe, or unusual. But to me, it wasn't so much the Shonda Rhimes name. I'm not like a big Grey's Anatomy fan. It was more the concept, so the Jane Austen Gossip Girl concept for me.
I think for me, both played a role because I'm definitely a Shonda Rhimes fan. Like, Grey's Anatomy is my most is the show that I don't entirely like. I love it unconditionally. It's my secret, not so secret, like guilty pleasure. And I've also watched Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder and Private Practice. And I mean, yeah. Uh, so definitely, and it has a bit of that. I guess the way the show Bridgerton is so free with the questions of a racially mixed cast and having gay characters and just not making anything of it is very Shonda Rhimes-y, I think. That's also something she does, and that yeah, that's that I like very much. Like you, Bina, I think it's at first it was a bit weird because I love period drama. I love feeling historical, and this took something out of it. But once you're settled in that new parallel universe where race basically isn't an issue or not as much as an issue, it's all good.
What I found interesting in this one, though, is, there are many, especially BBC dramas now, that are colorblind, and they don't explain the fact that some of the characters are Black or Indians. They just do it, which is great. But it was interesting to me that in Bridgerton, at one point, Lady Danbury has a conversation with the Duke and says, we've only just relatively recently achieved this status because the king fell in love with the queen. So
That's right.
they actually do address why Black people are now aristocrats or why Black people are so visible in society, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure it was necessary because they didn't really take it much further and talk about the precarious position, really. But I thought it was interesting they felt they had to do that. And I wonder if that was more catered towards maybe American audiences or global audiences who aren't as used to seeing it. Because I think for those of us on a diet of British TV, it's becoming wonderfully increasingly common to see those sort of just very colorblind casts, and you don't really refer to it. It is.
I think it wasn't necessary, but like something I said to myself at the beginning of the show, and I discussed that with a friend as well. And I thought, well, okay, that's a bit weird. But let's just imagine this is like, yeah, a parallel universe where somehow it evolved differently than in ours. And their little explanation is actually just that. It's just, well, in this almost like ours, almost like our universe, well, it's different, and the king fell in love with a Black woman, and that's how it happened. And I thought it wasn't a big deal to justify it. It didn't take anything away, and it helped feel like this. I'm not gonna say like this was authentic because it's definitely not, but just a little bit more like you're in a real world in a very silly way.
And this is quite
Yeah.
a British connection, but um, a lot of people, both in in the newspapers and also on Facebook, made it was highlighted that Daphne was played by an actress that's the daughter of a very popular soap character, Sally Webster, from Coronation Street. So I think that helped it in the UK. Well, not that it needed help anyway, but I did see quite a lot of newspaper articles about that the relation between the two.
I actually didn't know that. So kind of like a new interpretation on the soap. It's kind of cool.
With Lady Whistledown, so were either of you surprised that we found out so well at the end of the series who it was?
Definitely. Definitely, yeah. And I kind of like it because I really didn't want it to be like Gossip Girl, where you feel like the story is continuing, and but you still got this big thing that's going to be the big reveal at the end. This way, Lady Whistledown is a part of the story, but it's not the only thing keeping it together. And I'm very interested to see what they're going to do in season 2 now that that's out. But the characters don't know. We know it. So I don't know how it's going to feel, because I don't often like when we as spectators know something so important and no one else does. But we'll see. Maybe this time it will be funnier than in other occasions.
And I guess knowing that it was Penn all along, and that betrayal of Marina, did that make the character unlikable for you?
For me, yes, definitely. Although I could see why. I mean, it was a good intention, but it just felt the method of splitting them up was so publicly shaming to Marina that it felt a bit mean.
Yeah, it was definitely mean, but it felt also very human. Like I can definitely see that happening, and it feels like she regrets it, right? She tries to do something to to correct it somehow, but it's like in an impulse because she's too much in love and too much hurt. So it made her unlikable, but also very relatable as well. Should we say hi to Matt, who I think has joined us?
Oh, hi, Matt.
But he hasn't talked.
Vale.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Putting out fires at work, so I'm trying to jump on for a little bit at least.
Oh, no problem. So the main thing that you've missed so far is just the chat about Gossip Girl. Were you ever a fan of that?
I've never watched an episode of Gossip Girl in my life. I did enjoy Bridgerton, but I don't know how much of that is the actual writing or just give me a period piece and I'll watch the hell out of it.
I do wonder how much of Bridgerton's popularity is it's a pandemic. I need something really fluffy where everyone looks gorgeous, wears gorgeous clothes, and the good people end up together in the end and have a bunch of sex. Like, it's so comfort television, right?
Apparently, the staff members at the country house where they filmed it, all the sex scenes there, had to keep on monitoring the actors to make sure they didn't break any of the furniture.
Wow.
Yeah. But, it was pretty sweet that the main Bridgerton girl got to lose her virginity, to a duke in front of a fireplace in a grand mansion. Someone who lost his virginity in an Orlando hotel bathroom, I can relate.
But I agree. It was very sweet and very fluffy and nice to watch, basically, and just agreeable.
I imagine other people thought it too, but you know how the Duke Simon, he kept saying, "Oh, I can't give you children. I can't give you children," and then he's standing in front of her naked. Did anyone else think that he didn't have a penis?
No.
I didn't understand what the hell was going on. They have like American style sex ed back then. Like, she didn't know how to get pregnant. She didn't know how that worked.
Yeah, that's scary.
No, think it's realistic. She literally has to go and get a maid to tell her how it works.
But even back then, there wasn't like gossip. There wasn't like a wedding night like talk with your mother or something. Like
I think they kind of put it on her mother specifically, that she should have had this talk with her and she didn't quite. But maybe in other families this wouldn't be the case.
I think it was very common. I think probably Sarah, Dr. Blood, could tell us though, but from what I've read of social history, these very, very sheltered aristo women of Jane Austen were incredibly sheltered. And as a result, the wedding night was often quite a shock.
Matt, what were your thoughts on the fact that the reveal of Lady Whistledown at the end of series 1?
I liked it. I don't understand like how she didn't try to twist her power more to keep that dude that she liked. It seemed like Lady Whistledown had like, drew the ire of the queen. Like, she had power that she could have used, but I don't know. I like that it was her, but I don't understand exactly. I guess I just don't understand how she kept those two people compartmentalized.
I just think Penelope isn't that mean. Like, she's not that manipulative. Like, the amount of power and influence she has with Lady Whistledown and the ear of the Queen, she could use it for a lot worse than just splitting up Bridgerton #3 with Fiance, right?
And was it, who was the middle daughter that I thought was what's her name?
Eloise.
Who's that?
Eloise.
Yeah, her, the kind of tomboyish, like badass girl.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Hi, Hannah.
Hey.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Well, we are talking silliness and Gossip Girl, and we haven't quite talked about how hot the Duke is yet. Although I'm personally more partial to the Bridgerton brothers, but
I like Colin.
There's now a campaign
I like the
on media to get him to
Duke's
James
friend, that boxer guy. He's my jam.
So I'm probably an idiot, just missed it. How did the boxer guy and the Duke know each other?
I think from the Duke's rakish past of traveling and gambling and, living the high life. It's interesting because none of that is in the novel at all. So the Duke just exists perfectly formed and loaded and ready to fall in love. Like, he doesn't have kind of friendship groups outside of the circle. And because the boxing guy doesn't exist, you also don't get the whole plot with Penelope's dad basically losing all the family's money and gambling and getting arrested at the end of the season. So
wait a minute, he was arrested? I thought he was killed.
Oh yeah, sorry, killed by the the mafiosi, I guess. So none of that happens at all in the book. The book is literally just the romance between Simon and the girl. That's it. There's nothing else, which is a bit disappointing, for sure.
One of the things that I was wondering, between episodes 1 and 2, it was Anthony, so Daphne makes this great debut. The Queen praises her, and that gets a lot of attention. And then it's Anthony that's, shooing away suitors. Why was that?
Well, because he had her lined up for that old rich guy, right? He'd already figured out who he wanted her to marry. Wasn't that the reason?
Ah, right. I thought it was something to do with that, he had his own lover, but that was in secret. So I thought it was something to do with that he didn't want his sister to marry someone that she really liked.
Oh no, I think he genuinely is acting in what he thinks is her best interest. I don't think it's out of jealousy or exposing his own position. I think from the TV show, we're meant to think he just takes his position as head of the family like way too seriously and is very draconian about it, but he genuinely feels like he doesn't want her to marry Simon. He genuinely doesn't think Simon's a good, he's a friend, but he knows his past. And I think he's lined up a rich old landowner and thinks that'll do very, very well for his sister.
Oh, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that was how I took it. The other thing that isn't in the novel is the whole plot with one of the brothers going off to that painting salon and realizing that there is a sort of a gay subculture in London, and that one of the very popular guys he's married is actually secretly gay, and that quite moving speech about how he don't judge me because this is the only choice I have, which I thought was really cool. At one point I thought he was going to turn out to be gay, and he wasn't, or maybe he will in further series. But
I thought he was realizing he couldn't actually make art, so he shouldn't judge other people. I didn't know everyone was gay in that artist colony. Such a fucking idiot.
I did think so too, Bina, that as soon as he met that guy and he takes him into his place, I was thinking, oh, here we go, gay storyline, which is good, but I was sort of, thinking, oh, this is what will happen, but then quite surprised when that never happened, and then the brother Benedict was getting together with the dressmaker.
Yeah, I think it's more powerful this way. I mean, I would have been okay if he had turned out he had like realized that he's gay, but like not all artists have to be tortured and gay, right? Like you can also like have creative a creative drive and be straight, and the other way around. I mean, so I think it was better to have this acceptation of that guy who's living the only way he knows how to, and the Bridgerton brother who was like, okay, not my thing, but fine. And that was refreshing.
I was gonna say I agree, Marie. I think it is more powerful this way. I enjoy the fact that, I mean, not that like you said, I wouldn't mind if he was also gay, and that was what I was expecting. So I like that they subverted that expectation and just had him play a supportive role. And potentially, I viewed it as everyone there being polyamorous, at least, and perhaps open sexually, which I also liked.
Yeah, I mean, actually, what in a way, for a show that's so progressive, what was interesting is that not one but two of the Bridgerton boys are having affairs with working class women, which in a way plays very much into a cliche, right? Of the opera singer as kind of loose. I mean, that's very much something that's in the sort of 18th and 19th century trope, that, it's okay for the aristo guy to kind of sow his seeds with working class girls. But then both of them turn out to be really strong businesswomen and quite feisty, especially the dressmaker with the fake French accent. I thought that was hilarious.
It was driving me nuts who played the singer Sienna, and it was the girl who played on Game of Thrones that Arya played that killed all the Freys.
Yeah, spoilers for the show because Marie hasn't watched it.
Thanks. I'd be fine just knowing that she's in Game of Thrones. All right.
She has a strong look though. Like, it was bugging me where I'd seen her before. They were both really interesting characters though. Although I felt I like the dressmaker character. I felt the opera singer, who's really kind of a little bit looking for being a kept woman, was a bit of a cliche. And really, he's in love with her, really, but no, he's not.
Yeah, I like how they took that liberty and painted that beautiful picture. And not only that, but the show's color palette is so vibrant, so intense, that it all fits. And I just love that they did not feel a need to explain it away. It was just, this is happening and we're not going to apologize. And I like how they gave a little explanation. It was addressed eventually, but I could have gone either way where I don't think they needed it at all.
It's interesting to me that Netflix, their two arguably highest paid or richest showrunner deals are with Shonda Rhimes and Ryan Murphy, right? These are the big kind of mega millions deals. And both of them, in a sense, produce content that retcons history and just makes it what it should have been. But when Ryan Murphy did it in his latest series on Hollywood, where he kind of like had an alt history of sort of like 1930s, 1940s Hollywood, and he ends it, like the arc ends with a very powerful female sort of movie studio boss, which wouldn't have happened, and a gay actor who's coming out, and like he got a lot of stick for that. That wasn't a very popular season. People thought that was ridiculous. Whereas here,
I loved that.
I loved it too. It was amazing, but it wasn't like it got a lot of stick. And again, in his in his shows, very heightened costumes, heightened color palette, particularly in the Nurse Ratched one, the latest one. And yet Shonda Rhimes is doing the same thing here. She's kind of retconning it, as Hannah put it, to give us the world as it should have been. And yet it's so beloved and so welcomed. I mean, I don't think I've seen anyone who doesn't like what she did here. But it's kind of nice that Netflix is really, it's funding it, right? I mean, that's a lot of money to throw at two people who have a particular agenda, which is kind of cool.
But Shonda Rhimes is like has like huge shows under her belt, and apparently like she just like happened upon this book because she ran out of books, and that's how like she got into Bridgerton.
Oh my god, can you imagine the author suddenly, I mean, probably already hugely best-selling, but suddenly the amount of readers she's going to get. Like a lot of the girls I know are now reading Bridgerton, and not least because I gave one of them the book and then she sent it to another one. But like it just feels like a lot of people are reading the books now. Maybe in the way like when Game of Thrones took off. How involved, do you guys know, how involved does she actually get in the decisions in the show? Or is she just more, because I mean, like her and Ryan Murphy, they have so many shows on the go at the same time. Like, how far is it devolved to the showrunner, or do they really? Would she be the one who says the Queen's going to be black and Simon's going to be black? Like, where does that decision happen?
I bet there was some decision high up that they'd have a diversified casting and the best actor for each role. I don't know if they actually would say, well, the Queen has to be black. It's like. I think maybe certain main characters and, some people in power should be, diversified. But yeah, so it says, the way I understand it, Shonda ran out of books to read on vacation and somehow stumbled onto mine, Quinn said during an interview. It's crazy to think that my life is forever changed because Shonda didn't bring enough reading material on vacation. But that's honestly what happened.
And I noticed that with the books, they are re-releasing them. So like if you do look at Amazon, for example, they've got the second book, but they've got a release date of next month. But then it's just that new version of, well, just like the new printing of it. Whereas, you can probably find about 10 of the books that were written about 20 years ago.
What I find really weird is publishers not really seeming to be that in sync with Netflix. So, like, my husband and I really enjoyed Pretend It's a City, which is just, Fran Lebowitz talking to Martin Scorsese and just being hilarious. And the first thing you think is, let me just go buy lots of books written by Fran Lebowitz, and none of them are available on Amazon. And you're like, shouldn't a publisher somewhere have thought this was going to be a big hit and like reissue some of her books? But no. Anyway, that's a sidetrack.
About like the difference and how there's more in the show than in the book, I think maybe at least that's the case for me. I'm much more tolerant to silliness and fluffiness and something just fun to watch.
I would just say it's written in the style is fine. It's just very workmanlike. Gets across. It's just like just reading a classic romance novel. Like it's not particularly well written. It's not horribly badly written. It was just thin to me. It's just handsome Duke, like pretty girl, meet, have amazing sex. They kind of have like fallouts over really trivial, stupid misunderstandings, and then they come back together. And I suppose the only thing that was interesting, I was curious to see, like, I watched the whole scene where she has sex with him and wants to get pregnant, so holds him. And I didn't think that was particularly controversial. Then on social media, people were saying it's actually male rape. That scene is in the book, though. It's done kind of in the same way. So interesting.
Yeah. That's honestly, when I was watching that, I was thinking about you and I May Destroy You. And the position of that show is that any sex under any false pretense is rape. And I was thinking, ooh, that's going to be maybe a
I thought
problem.
that too.
I thought it was an issue. I'm not sure I would call it rape, but that I would definitely thought that it was a huge break of his trust and violation of his trust, which is like close to a rape. But
I mean, I'm not sure how
yeah,
it really survives that, honestly. I mean, that's pretty, I don't know. I just feel that would be pretty fundamental. Mind you, he's lied to her about the fact that he actually can father children. So maybe, no, but two wrongs don't make a right, really.
No. It is a dereliction of duty, though. I mean, I think legally she would have grounds to sue him at the time.
which is an issue in itself, right? But
yes. Well, the fact that she only has value if she's producing an heir, that's the biggest issue. The fact that any woman would feel like she had to go to those lengths, that's a fucking issue more than anything else, Like if something like that were to happen nowadays, I think that we would have a very different tune toward her, because it's not, necessary. It's not the only way for you to have a livelihood or a net worth in society now. But back then, just the sheer amount of pressure on a person like that,
Even now,
regardless of what private arrangement they have, what if he were to die? She would be no good to anyone,
she'd remarry, I would imagine. But I was, if you're
But
want
that would
to
be
get
tricky.
more pandemic, total, like mindless reality TV on Netflix, I would highly recommend a series called Bling Empire, which is about like super rich Asian people in LA. And so this is contemporary. And one of the people on that, she's a woman married to a doctor. They're hugely wealthy. And she talks about being shunned by his parents because she couldn't conceive for 10 years, because it's so important in that culture that they have a son to kind of inherit everything. And that she would go to weddings with the Chinese family. They would sit her at the kiddie table and she would be made to do the washing up, like really shunned, So I think it probably still, these issues still persist, but thankfully not necessarily in European
I wasn't thinking about cultures where that's important. That's true.
And this is in LA. This is like
Western culture, I would say it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah. But I get her desperation. But the weird thing is I get that she wants to have a big family, but there is something kind of like a bit subversive about kind of trying to force him to be a dad. What if he really didn't want to be a dad? What if he had no paternal instinct? And what if he hated the kid? I mean, there's this really kind of like happy scene at the end when he has a little baby and he's obviously really happy with it. But that could have worked out so badly.
That's true.
It's just, she just doesn't think that's possible. Like it doesn't really register in her view of the world that people would not want kids and that it's a choice, because it is definitely in our view of the world now, but even that is not as clear cut as it could be. And I think for her it's just it doesn't feel that way. But I also think that this specific scene is not it's not only about conceiving, it's about making sure she's right. Like she has suspicions, but she wants to understand what's really happening. So she confronts him on it in this way, which is terrible and a big issue. But I think that there are both sides of it. It's not entirely. It is a manipulation, but it's not, I don't care what you want. I want a kid, and that's how I'm gonna do it. It's a bit more intricate.
It goes back to the education, the sex education at the time. But what he's
Thank you.
doing is the pull-out method, famously not the most effective method
Yeah.
of birth control.
Yeah,
I
it's
have
not
many
working.
cousins in this world because of that.
So I don't know if
I
they
mean,
would go down.
perhaps he's also using the rhythm method and counting for her, but yeah.
Also not that reliable.
No.
I think it is horrible, but I think it's very, very, very common. And actually, you know, I'm sure that there are men who didn't know what the hell they were up to either.
Oh my God. I mean, I can only imagine what I was like as a younger man, probably like all thumbs. Just didn't know what the hell I was doing.
I mean, there's a fantastic novella by Ian McEwan, arguably Booker Prize winning, called On Chesil Beach, set in 1950s England. And it's exactly that, a young couple who absolutely love each other, really earnest, on their honeymoon night on Chesil Beach, and neither of them has any experience or any clue. And it's really frightening, and they don't consummate the marriage, and it's over. It's just over. And I'm sure there's more trauma around this than we think there is. Maybe not now, but like in recent history.
There's a really funny movie called like The Good Boys or something, and it's all about like these like sixth graders, and it's all the innocence of like they're trying to be like acting like adults and knowing what they're talking about, like about sex, and it's just like hilariously wrong. Myself and my group of friends growing up, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, like all we had was like magazines or whatever, and we're like, yeah.
Like it was hard for us kids who grew up pre-internet. I mean, some of it was great. We didn't have a lot of social media pressure. In many ways, we could just be more innocent, but it was hard to get knowledge if knowledge was not at hand. So there were positives and negatives. I just want to say something reinforcing what Mary said about Daphne, like it's not entirely selfish. And I think that what's quite nice about Bridgerton is at various points, Eloise and Daphne have really good speeches or bits of dialogue that they give where they're talking about how constrained they feel as women, that wouldn't it be nice if Eloise could just go to university and get a career, and where Daphne says, I wish I could do more with my life, but basically I have to marry well, and therefore I'm gonna, someone's gonna marry me off to someone I don't like, so I'm gonna take charge of the situation and actually try and make the best of it. So I kind of admire her in that respect. Like she's very, for a pretty heroine who could be quite passive, she's actually not. She's actually very active in her own fate, in trying to get knowledge. And if her mum hasn't given it to her, she'll try and find a maid or someone else. She's gonna try and improve things, which I kind of respect.
Like her brother says, have you ever visited a farm? If I was the mother, I would take her to a farm and be like, now watch carefully, dear. And wait for her to put two and two together.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to say it and you want to be subtle, you still don't have to be vague as fuck, like clear as mud.
Your only job as an aristocratic mum or a sort of rich mum in that period is to prepare your daughters for marriage, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
People can get hurt if you're not doing it right. Like, you got it going on.
Yeah. Like when all the girls are wondering what Marina has and how she got it, and like how did she came to be in that situation, and they just don't know, and they're like, maybe if you just talk to a boy and it can happen. And just for that, you might want to be a bit clearer about what they should be avoiding, because it's very vague this way.
Yeah, it's like Blue Lagoon, they don't know what's going on. They figure it out eventually, but they literally did not have a choice. Those two kids, there was nobody there to tell them. Like, you have your mom and all these other people around you, and they're like, I just, more knowledge never hurt anyone. I don't know why, you would want your children, especially your girl children, to be ignorant, because now they don't know whether they're being debased or abused in their marriages either. If they just think, oh, that's normal.
Oh, I think they just assume this is how it goes. I mean, you watched the film with Keira Knightley about the Duchess of Devonshire, where she's basically married off to Ray Fiennes, and he just, basically rapes her on their wedding night. But she has no prior knowledge. She literally has no idea what's going on. I think I'd love someone to be on this podcast like Sarah, Dr. Blood, or someone who knows about this stuff, but I reckon it was very common.
I kind of wanted to say more about that scene and the R word and because I think it is a big deal and we need to be careful about it. But in this instance, I also think that it shows that particular cases and society issues are linked, but are not the same. So what I mean by that is that a rape or a break of trust or that kind of thing is never like you should not justify it or say it's okay in any way. And what Daphne does here is not okay. I felt very much like that. But the way it's resolved, it is also important, and I think that's true in real life as well. Like there are some cases of awkwardness or stuff like that you didn't want to happen. And I'm not talking about rape because rape is a thing. But anyway, what I mean is they talked about it and they resolved it, and therefore it's not as big of an issue as if nothing more had been said on the matter, I think. And I think in this show, it's fine because everything else around it goes in the right direction of showing that these women are very constrained, have a hard, they live in a hard society for women. And yeah, it's, to me, this was fine. And it's not, it is a controversial scene, but it's not a badly done scene, I think.
I would compare it to stealthing. So for those that don't know, that's where, the person wearing the condom suddenly slips it off and doesn't tell the other person and then continues. And then
what is that?
and then the other person is unbeknownst that they're having unprotected sex. So I would compare it in a similar way to that just a massive betrayal of trust between the two people. And you could see that Simon was really betrayed by that. He was talking about, if you're not pregnant, we'll just go our own way, separate. We'll still be married, but only in name.
Mm-hmm. I think though, what like the difference with condom removal is you absolutely know what you're doing, and you are violating a. So Matt, what condom removal is when you put the condom on, you've agreed to engage in protected sex.
Condom removal, I basically speaks for itself. Whatever Glen said, stealthing.
But so you have engaged in that agreement prior to, and midway, sneakily, it's removed without the other person's knowledge. Is very different, I think, than what Daphne does here, because one could argue she doesn't even truly understand what she's doing. It is very much an experiment, and she might not really connect how much of a violation that is. Not that that's excusing the behavior. It is obviously manipulative, and she goes into it knowing at least something about the manipulation, or she wouldn't have done it secretly. But she might not understand quite the amount of it, and I don't think that her intention was to assault him or physically hurt him. And so I do think that her intention has a lot of weight in the case. Like if we were pursuing this legally, I would say the motive would
I mean,
count against the law.
you argue that against the guy, and the guy said, "Well, that wasn't my intent." Like, no one's gonna buy that.
But
Well,
I mean,
again, though, that's you're talking about sex that's been engaged in under these agreements and then they've been violated. This was not a verbal or written contract that they made not to do this. This was her having a lack of information completely and testing a theory on how it might work.
Still question.
She should have probably just asked, but I don't think she knows enough about sex to understand that that's a violation and an assault of type.
And in that period, there's no such thing as marital rape. Like a woman's a property of man, so he can have sex with her whenever he wants. Does it work the same the other way around?
Well, the argument the other way around is that the man's body consents, I think. Something weird like that. Like,
there probably is some fucked up Victorian or Elizabeth like rule about it, right? Like the fact that he has a stiffy means he's consented or something.
I bet it's how it's looked at in the world as well. You know, even women can still become lubricated and have sexual response. It's a lot less common, but that does not mean they're consenting. And unfortunately, I do think that is still a problem in our society and our legal system to this day.
Oh, that we're still arguing what legitimate rape is and how a woman's body can just shut it down.
Yeah.
And Bina, I think marital rape
just not be able to achieve an erection if you don't want it. I think that's fucking ridiculous.
I think marital rape in the United States only got like made illegal like 20 years ago. It's real recent.
I'm not sure it's illegal in India yet. I mean, but who knows?
Okay, so I feel like we've had a very heavy conversation about a not so heavy show, and I feel a bit guilty about that, although I think it's important. So I think we should end on a less heavy note in our conversation. And I'm saying that because I'm going to go in about 10 minutes as well.
What about if we just talk about season 2? What do we think? Predictions?
I would really like to see Marina's gentleman caller come back. I think she deserves that. I'd like to see. Oh, but
did
he's
she
supposed
live
to be
with
dead.
him? I know. All right.
I'd like to see that be a mistake. You know.
I think his boyfriend. He died. Her boyfriend.
Yeah, I'd like to see that be some sort of mistake, and he comes back.
Ooh.
I think she deserves that. I don't know. I like stuff to work out. I am a romantic, so
yeah.
It's not over until I see that his body. You know what I mean? Like that's how I am. I very stubbornly give up until there's
I'm
no.
sure you have said that before.
Well, yeah.
I'm-
I mean, yeah. We.
I'm quite
it's not
interested
like
to
you have
see.
like DNA or photo ID, right? Like mistakes
no.
have known to be made. So, I'd like to see her work out. She fantastic actress, one of my favorites in the show. The Queen was probably my absolute favorite character in the entire thing.
Really, I found her really weird. Like,
I loved her.
just
She
like
just
too
class.
much. Yeah. Well, like, yeah. I found that weird. I'd like for season 2 to show us more. I mean, I'm excited to see how Eloise gets on with being in society and how she's gonna rebel against that. And what's it gonna be? And I'm really
is maybe gay.
well. I don't know, and I'm not sure it's. Well, it's complicated again because, like, I don't really want her to be gay.
I don't. I mean, I do and I don't. I don't because I don't want it to be like, oh, of course the least feminine one that's
exactly,
the gay one.
Exactly.
I don't really enjoy that stereotype. I hate it when it plays both ways. I know many ladies that are gay and married to beautiful women, and I know plenty of gay men who are total man's men, and just I happen to like having sex with men. Like, I hate those. I'm not saying they obviously come from a reason. I probably know 10 to 1 very queens to masculine gay men, but you don't have to be in these boxes. And I think you can be a feminist and a bright mind and a tomboy without being gay necessarily. Yeah. Although I do think it would be an interesting dynamic to see play out if she were to be coming out, or potentially another debutante in her season, maybe her dealing with that and helping them.
That'd be interesting.
Similar to what's going on with the brother and his artistic friends. That could be an interesting dynamic to explore. But yeah, I don't think
Eloise will find out that Penn is Lady Whistledown, and then that will be quite a rift between the two friends.
Yeah, she will find out at some point. Yeah, it's important that she does. Well, for my personal enjoyment, I'd like to see a lot of the Bridgerton brothers, and I will be content if we get to see them.
I'd like to see Colin have a bigger storyline as well. What a gem. I like that he refused Marina, your honor and my honor, but your honor, like,
yeah.
That's probably the least realistic thing about the damn show, but I loved it.
I did think that when he makes that speech of, if you had just come to me, told me your predicament, then I would have helped you. But that's easy to say now.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was impossible for her to. It was too much of a risk, like, to put everything on that and trust that he would do the right thing, or what she wanted him to do. Might not be the right thing for him.
Yeah, there was. I did write down a few notes here of, some of the themes. One of the big ones we've sort of talked about it. It's just the whole idea of women within society, and just that great moment when Marina says to Daphne, who's quite a high position now as a duchess, and just, well, you're not a man, so why will he pay attention to anything you write?
Oh, yes. Yeah, even with all that power, there's still no agency.
And it's something that I did find surprising until Marina actually said it, but then when she did, it was like, oh yeah, of course, that it's really her husband has power. She doesn't on her own really have any power.
Right. And I think that goes back to what Lady Danbury says to the young Duke. I made myself the scariest thing in the room. I made myself a formidable enemy or ally, And so that's sort of, Daphne does need to build that up in herself. If she wants that agency, she'll have to demand it from society, title or no title, riches or not. Can I tell you one thing that I really like, though?
Yes.
Going back to the racial equality factor in the show, I absolutely also adored the fact that there was nobody shitty and still racist. Like, there aren't secret, like, KKK groups meeting in the fringe that we see. It's just not a thing. When Marina's shame is made public, there's not also, and she's Black. It's so not a thing. It's not an acceptable form of thought or feeling in that society. And brilliant. Just obviously it's fiction, but it did not feel like fantasy.
I know I was torn about it because I know that when things like that happen, it's it just jumps in your mind to think, oh, but it wouldn't have happened that way. But then, and you know, there's people that will talk about how historically inaccurate it is, but at the same time, we're watching something to escape from the realities of life.
Right. Now, if she were playing, you know, perhaps if this was a biopic about Queen Anne or Queen Victoria, you know, that might be something if it was specifically about genuinely real life characters. But I think the only quote unquote real life characters that are the king and queen, and they're the king is a very backseat character. And I don't know that we know, you know, a whole lot about his queen at the time anyway. So it was so not bothersome. I'm not articulating this well, but I think, okay, so like right now they're getting ready to do a biopic about Anne Boleyn, and Anne Boleyn is being played by a Black actress. Several of the other characters have been made colorful, and the only like I don't really have like an issue with it per se. I don't want to say like, oh, you can't do that. I would hope that as we do try to create a more inclusive society and we try to build the world that we've not had but want to see, we don't set a precedent for future generations to forget how it actually was. I just hope that we remain cautious about.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like not fixing history to the point where we potentially forget and are doomed to repeat it. So, you know, I would hope that that movie at least includes maybe, you know, how typically movies like that end up with, you know, Henry VIII went on to blah, 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 you know, perhaps including a real portrait of the person in real life, just to, again, if you think about, there might be children in 20 years from now where they don't watch the other Boleyn girl with who is it, Scarlett Johansson and Keira Knightley, Natalie Portman, yeah. They don't watch that version, and you know, hopefully they are reading a history book and are understanding that, but there could be a potential for them to not, and maybe this is the only version that they are exposed to. So I would just hate to think that in our effort to make corrections to our modern society and re-envision a more equal history, we just don't, like I said, you know, forget it, and then potentially are doomed to repeat it. You know, but it's not the most major concern, and I think good for them. I like other roles being opened to other folks. I think especially the area of the arts that does that well already is theater. It's one of the great things about how alive theater is. You can constantly continue to tell the same stories in new ways and transform them and open them up to a larger variety of actors and actresses. You know, one role that I would like to play is Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I think that's not an unrealistic idea for me. It's in my range. I can sing it, and I don't think Quasimodo is a very sexualized character, so who cares?
That's true.
So I do like that we're moving in that direction as a society. But this being a fiction about fictional characters and being set the way it is. And again, I love the fact that they do not lamplight it. They don't dwell on it. They don't need to hold the viewer's hand and make it okay. It just is okay.
Mhm.
I think Sense8 did a lot in that same vein with sexuality and things. You know, one of the opening scenes in that show is penetrative sex with a transgender character, you know, two women. And it's pretty graphic, but it's also so natural and so beautiful. You know, it's like there's just something about the way the Wachowskis handled that where it felt so right and not vulgar and not gratuitous whatsoever. I think that is just really critical right now for us to not only have, but to have the conversation around and enjoy, you know. And I just, yeah, honestly, one of the best things about the show. I'll always recommend it to other people. And yeah, I love the way that they just presented it, did not feel the need to at all explain it away. I almost feel like if they didn't intend to ever, it comes so late in the season where Lady Danbury, you know, this could be snatched away at us at any time. It's only because he happened to fall in love with one of us that we live in this world. And I wonder if that was even really the original intention. Or if at some point the studio stepped in and said, hey, you know, you should address this, or they just felt like this, you know, this will be a way to add conflict. And we can kind of explain it away then. But yeah, really enjoyable piece.
Just this is related. So we're still talking about Bridgerton, but just thinking of the cast and other shows that they've been in. Have you ever watched Dairy Girls?
Oh, that Penelope is from that, right?
Yes.
I have not seen it. It's on my list. I've been told it's right up my alley. I've been told it's like the Irish. What is it? It's an Irish show or an English show?
Irish. So
yeah, I've been told it's like the Irish female version of oh fuck, what's it called? In-Betweeners.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It gets a lot of comparisons to that, and I never watched it when it first came on. It was only when I was off sick one day that I thought, oh, I'll give that a try. And I had just watched the In-Betweeners reunion show, and they came on, and the host Jimmy Carr was like, you know, if there's ever been a girl version of the In-Betweeners, this is it. And they had the cast on from Dairy Girls, and then just this week, but well, past 2 weeks, I've rewatched series 1 and 2.
I'm gonna have to get on it now. Maybe we should talk about that one. I love the In-Betweeners. It's like the children's version of Peep Show. It's like it's In-Betweeners, and then they grow up to be Peep Show
from Dairy Girls, and it's just like the exact. Since well, my mum is Irish, and I can just imagine her saying it as well. It's like they're doing this. It's like a Dead Poets Society rip-off type episode. They get this new teacher, and she's really cool, and they write poems in English. And when they submit their essays, the poems, and the teacher reads them and rips them all up, and then they go back home, and Erin's talking to her mum, and she's saying, you know, the teacher, she ripped up her poems, and then the mum's like, why is that? And she said, because she said we weren't writing from our soul, and the mum says, well, why were you not writing from your soul? Which I can imagine my mum saying, and probably has said to me before.
Yeah, going back to Bridgerton, I have to watch that show now. It's been on my list for a while, so I'm definitely gonna. The family that is the Featheringtons.
Yes.
Do you feel like wasn't one of those girls, she was like I feel like both of the other sisters they came from the West End playing the stepsisters in Cinderella, and they were just plucked and put into this.
It did
this
feel
show.
like the Ugly Stepsisters, you're right.
But they weren't rude. And the one is so sweet with her poor singing voice and her absolute like lack of self-awareness, but she's so sweet. And I was just so crushed for her with her little gentleman friend. He was really into her. Can
I
you
agree.
imagine?
I was really rooting for that to happen, but then not just once, but twice it had to end because no dowry.
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, what a piece of shit. And I mean, okay, PSA. It's time for review. Okay, PSA. If you or someone you know has problem gambling, please find your nearest Gamblers Anonymous meeting and stop it, because it really does destroy lives. Not, part of it is a choice. It's just like any other drug. Part of it
It's
is
a
a
very
choice, and part of
difficult
it is a disease.
addiction, and like you're
It is
saying, ruins lives. And I'm sure a lot of gamblers have been in that situation where Archibald is in. He has that moment, he rigs the fight, he wins, and then he thinks that's solved all my problems. But then it
It's
does
always one more. It's
before the
always one
next
more.
gamble, that is.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to get it in your head, never again, never ever again. And yeah, find a Gamblers Anonymous program. And if you are a loved one of a gambler, there is a program called Gam-Anon, which is for family and friends of a gambling addict. It's also a 12-step program for you to take ownership of your part in codependent relationships. So.
And one thing that is sort of different about this show compared to other period dramas is just attitudes of people. So when that scene where Eloise is talking to the lady's maid, or someone that's raised her from very young, but she's now effectively a servant of her, and that servant's not afraid to bite back.
Yes.
Which is not something that you would find in other period dramas like it. Well, you might, but I can't really think of many examples.
No, you wouldn't. And I do like the dynamic there of, obviously it's very Downton, where they are good masters to serve, and she that is her space, and it is a violation of the contract for Eloise to be in there. So she's not afraid to be candid with her, because what is Eloise going to do? Go cry to Mama, and Mama's going to be like, what the fuck were you doing in there in the first place? How dare you? She's served us loyally for many years. How dare you? I like that portrayal of a family that really likes each other. So they do all take dinner together and hang out with each other. I like to see things where not every family is a piece of shit and people are mean and rude. I think that it sure is common, but I don't think that we should normalize it. And it can be often used as a plot device, to create drama and be a catalyst for overcoming things. I mean, very, I know one could argue, very Dickens, and it's,
Yes.
the times, obviously. But I mean, I grew up in a family like that where we genuinely liked each other and we loved spending time with each other. And I've built my own family now that's like that. I mean, we genuinely, the only one thing about this whole pandemic and being off work for going on a year now, I've gotten to spend unprecedented amounts of time with my husband, and it has not gotten old at all. And it'll probably be the harder thing to get used to going back to work, is not seeing him every day again and stuff. Keeping my odd hours again. You know, I think that we should look to normalizing that as much as possible and not romanticizing familial tension or abuse. You know, it's sort of like Outlander. Great concept for a story, but one could argue that she throws in a lot of rape for drama. And I have a problem with it. Yes, it might be realistic, or, you know, I don't know if maybe Diana Gabaldon has had her own experiences with that and is maybe using her stories as a way to process maybe a trauma that happened to her or a loved one. It is all too common, but I get worried when we use things like that for storytelling purposes. Very, very go-to. You know, same thing with pregnancies and things. We see that a lot on modern television. It's almost become a part of the modern hero's journey. And I think we tend to romanticize the pregnancy or the wedding and not the marriage, and not the having the child, having the human being you're now responsible for life. So I appreciated that they were romanticizing the normal family, and many of them seem to be good families with true love. The queen seemed to genuinely love the king, despite how hard that is when you're dealing with someone with dementia, early onset dementia as well.
But it was really great that you could join.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. It was just what I needed.
No, that's fine. Really great to talk to you too.
Yeah.
Been really missing you.
You're Vocathon, right?
Oh well, I think I did see that it was happening. What was the date for it?
So it's the night of, I guess it's the day of the 7th. So it's midnight EST on the 7th to midnight EST at the end of the day of the 7th.
Oh, I'm not sure, but I'll try and see if I can join.
Yeah, if you can, will you let me know what time you're planning on, and I'll make sure I get on then.
Oh yes, sounds good. Sounds good.
Love you so much. Really have been missing you. Let's find another one we can do together.
Yep, absolutely.
Or
No,
I was kind of hoping you might put some trivia together for the walkathon as well. So no peer pressure, but I love your trivia. So.
All right. Well, good night.
All right, darling. Good night.